Okay, so I did a scrub and I'm soaking my feet. I don't know if you see that. Soaking my feet, and I don't know if you did this when you were little. I don't know if you did this when you were little, but when it comes to like a noise, a specific noise, whether it be a machine or a utility or a car or something, you're like, I used to do that as a child, especially when it came to, I think it was grade school. Like I'm talking grade 1 to 6. I think it was in grade 4 or something like that. And during the announcements and then Oh Canada and all that stuff, I used to try to match certain frequencies, like literally like, and instead of like necessarily singing along with something or whatever, it'd just be like matching a certain thing. And I mean, everybody was singing already. Everybody was like, it's so loud over the PA system. You can't hear me doing what I'm doing. But I used to do that. I don't know if that's, I think they call it stimming or something like that. But I don't know if that considers, if that's part of the category. But I've done this throughout my life since I was very, very little. And it doesn't matter where I go, there will be sometimes a frequency or a pitch, a noise that's continuous, and or even like one that's like not necessarily like this one, right? But one that kind of goes up and down a little bit, but it's repetitive. And what I'll do is I will start to sync up with it, and then I will mimic the noise. So I don't know. I don't know if you've done this, but it's really interesting. It is a thing, and people do it. I'm not the only one. And same with the whole rubbing, when you're sleeping and you rub your feet together, almost like a fucking cricket. You rub your feet together, that's or playing with your hands. Like my father, the one that passed away, he used to pick at his nails specifically like this. So when he was in a coma back in the day when he had his injury, when he was in a coma and he was doing this, I was like, he's still in there. And he'd usually respond to music and stuff like that. And I had to convince my aunt, because my aunt's like, and the doctors, they were telling me he was a fucking vegetable. He wasn't in there. He wasn't coming out, that we should just pull the plug. And it's like 2/3 hematoma on the brain. There's no way he's coming out. And my aunt literally looked at me and she said, Amanda, he's gone. Like, just let him go or something like that. And I kind of had to fight with some of my family members because he was not married again. And between myself, who was 26 at the time, and my little brother, who was 24, we were handed over, because we're next of kin, we were handed the responsibility of making the medical decisions, and that includes whether it's a resuscitation. At the very end there, they gave me ultimatums. They're like A, B, or C. So keep him on, because he's not responding to fluids or medication or anything. You can keep feeding him, keep him on the life support, take him off, let him go naturally, or there was like a third option. And my brother said, listen, Amanda, I trust you. You can choose whatever you want. And I was like, okay, go with plan B, which was to take him off and let him go naturally. It took him 2 weeks to pass. So my brother and I took like a rotational turn. We lived out of vending machines and washing up in sinks. Like, we stayed there in the hospital. I don't know if you know St. Michael's, but when I was there's a gift shop, and I ended up getting like a tiny little card. I think I still have it. And I've never been religious myself, but I asked Archangel Michael, I think it was, to watch over him. And ever since, like, I feel like I've got some sort of connection with whatever that entity is or energy. But I asked him to look over my father and make sure it was like near the end there. I think they were giving him morphine. So he was already out of it. He had already left his body at the very end there. At the very end when he said, hey, everybody, right? So when he did, by the way, come out of a coma, he lasted for about a year until he got sepsis because of the bed sores, from them having to have to turn a person. He got sepsis, which is blood poisoning almost, from the sore on his coccyx, which would be like the tailbone area. So I would go visit every other weekend. At that time, I wasn't driving, and I would have to take the city bus to the Greyhound bus to wherever the Greyhound drops you off, the terminal to the subway, and then take it to the hospital. And then I would visit him wherever he was staying at the time, because they moved him around to a couple of different ones, but he ultimately ended up staying at the St. Michael's place. Anyways, so get back to that whole noise thing. I used to do a lot of weird shit. And now I'm seeing more and more people discussing and talking about this. Before, when I was growing up, I was born in the 80s, okay? Like just the late 80s. And they never talked about stimming or weird shit people does people neurodivergent shit. They never discussed anything really. I know they put my brother on Ritalin, and he was like a zombie for a little bit there till my mom took him off. But I don't think they put me on any medication. Not 100% sure how that worked, but I was never tested to see what my mental state was, like how my brain functioning was. And obviously, if you've been following my videos, it's been 2 years almost now, so I've got more than 600 videos on there now. But let me tell you, they never tested me for none of that shit. I was just weird and an outcast, and I'm sure some of you can relate to that. So when it comes to noises or something like that, I'll still do it now as an adult. When it comes to stimming, which is like, there's some things I do, I still do from childhood into adulthood. It's a form of comfort, I think, but it's also a form of syncing up. Now when I get in touch with the spiritual side of it, when I am tapping in or something like that, there's different things that I do. Not going to state them because I was actually told not to share so much information and give it away to people. I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. Because for one, the truth's always going to win above all else. Even if I were to divulge information, letting other people know, I've been doing that my whole life because I was trained to do so. So other people had the upper advantage. And it really doesn't matter at this stage, because whatever people do, especially if it's going to be towards me, or if they trespass against me, or they do some stupid shit against me, that's going to go back on them anyway. So I'm not worried about that. But I think everybody deserves to know what's going on. Everybody deserves to be given a heads up and have equal rights to this fucking game. Like, even if you're playing basketball or baseball or hockey, both sides know the fucking rules. And for the most part, both sides follow the fucking rules. So how is it fair that in this reality that we have here, the so-called game, this devil's playground, whatever the fuck you want to call it, when people finally do wake up out of state, and there's a lot that end up staying, hopefully this won't be the case, but there's a lot that are brainwashed and go through the same cycles until they die again and have to do it all over again, if you believe in that sort of shit. But I think everybody deserves to know the fucking rules. I do believe I divulge a lot of information on my YouTube channel. I do believe there's some people that come across it and they actually are synced up with myself and they resonate, or they understand what I'm talking about. And there's other people that are still asleep or have never been explained any of this shit, or maybe even are super heavily religious, so they've never looked outside of it, whatever they follow, and maybe are curious. But there's some people that have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, that maybe are given a heads up and they're like, you know what, I'm going to do my own research and discern for myself, think for myself, research for myself, do what I need to do for myself. Because this kind of feels, in my gut, it kind of feels right. It kind of feels like there's valid truth to this. There's like a hardcore essence there that resonates internally within me, and it's almost like this person's bringing it out in me that other people kind of like maybe push down on you. If you've had gifts your entire life and people have dismissed it, and they've been in control or been your handler for how you're supposed to think or what comes into your life, and they control every aspect of you, and they've been getting you to carry their baggage or their karma and stuff, like it's not always the easiest to break out of that old programming and be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because I know when I woke up, I was like, what? The first things that came to me were my ex-fiance and myself were syncing up. I thought he was mocking me. I thought he was mimicking me. I almost got worried that he was reading my fucking mind for a moment there, because we were so synced up. Now, I don't know whether we're supposed to be soulmates or twin flames or whatever, because you don't always end up with one or the other. They're just meant to trigger something for you to elevate in your life. They're meant to cause a tower or whatever. They're meant to teach you something, and you them, if they were to learn. But whatever it was, near the end there, he used to encourage me to take naps. I felt so tired, but then he would not sleep at all. He would maybe get like 2 hours of sleep, if that. He stopped eating, and now I understand why, but he stopped eating. And I think before we even got together, we were together for about 8 years. We were going to go on 9, but we were together for about 8 years. And before we got together, he had done like an ayahuasca. He went to Peru. He did a trip. And I think when he came back, he was starting to already go through his ascension and going through all these things, but he probably had no idea what the fuck was going on. He was just rolling with it. And he did indulge in smoking a lot of marijuana, and he had his beverages. So like, I mean, to tell the difference, how do you know what you're going through, right? If nobody's explained it to you. And then he's got control from his own family, just as mine did, over our everyday life and what the fuck we were going through. They probably had more understanding than we did put together. And I think we were supposed to go through it together, in my opinion, and even separate and come back together. But like, some people are heavily traumatized to the point where they're not able to get past that fear barrier, and it's very sad. And not all unions end up coming together, but there's always something good to come out of it. There's always a lesson, there's always something to replace it, or even better, or some things are just meant to work out the way they're meant to work out. Anyways, so like, I really do think that he was already going through something, but then when he got with me, he kind of like tapered off, plateaued, and maybe even went back a little bit, depending on how it went. And then near the end of the relationship, he almost seemed very bitter, very angry. I know I was triggered to shit. He was doing a lot of things on purpose to trigger me. I wasn't giving him the attention maybe I should have, but I was still trying to figure shit out. And I ended up deciding, like I said, if you've been following me, about 2 years ago, like, I quit drinking, quit smoking, I changed my diet, started working out, I started going on my healing journey, doing my inner shadow work. I started pulling away from everybody around me. I ended up leaving a mutual separation, a job I had for like a decade, almost 10 fucking years in a factory. I started my business, my small little art business slash reader slash seamstress business. And I started a YouTube channel, had no idea what the hell I was doing. And everything changed, my entire life. Called off the wedding that we were supposed to be in, and he ended up leaving because we were deciding who's staying, who's going, and he said he would find a place and whatever. So, and I'm in a city because I, like most women, go where the man is. I don't know if you agree with this, but most women go where their man is. Like they'll leave up and leave everything and they'll go travel to where. So he's lived here his entire life, my ex-fiance. And I came to this new city and I know nobody here. I know very little people. There was a few that I was shocked that, that I was growing up with that kind of are in the area. But for the most part, I was like secluded. I'm in a very nice area. It is family oriented. I do stick out like a sore thumb. I understand if people don't like me. I don't give a fuck if they don't like me. They're too fucking scared and cowardice to come talk to me. That's on them. I don't give a shit. I'm not doing anything to harm them. I'm all for protecting myself and healing. Protecting and healing. Very rarely do I feel the need to send something back unless I'm being hit hard. A lot of people are attacking me, and I've learned this because they're scared. The other day, I was like, why the fuck are these people so relentless? And I just happened to come across, I was walking, and I happened to see my one neighbor, and they were praying. Like they were on their knees, they were doing their little ritual or praying or whatever. I'm like, I want to have sympathy for sending any shit back, but like all they're trying to do is probably protect themselves. But if they come at me or attack me in any way and it goes back on them, they're going to probably assume that I'm attacking them when I'm not. I have no interest in that because that's just going to add more karma onto me. I call judgment with my own family, my own shit that I've been through, or whoever's done any kind of abuse to me or treated me wrong. Okay? And that's if I decide to do it. Sometimes I just forgive and fucking let it go. Like, I don't even give a shit at this point. I'm doing my own thing. I'm very happy, very grateful. But other times I send shit back and people get like a walloping. And I get to bear witness to some of it. Not all of it, because I don't really care. But when I do, I'm not jumping for joy. I'm not even happy. I'm like, fuck. Because I know full well that went hand in hand with exactly what the fuck. So I feel for some reason, or I'm getting hit or targeted, or I have absolute physical evidence of somebody sabotaging or doing something, and I call judgment. I let it go, and I said, you know what, just whoever, ancestors, you want to go at them, just try to be as fair and just as you can. I'm leaving it up to you because I don't want to get to decide what their fucking fate is. I don't want to get to decide what their punishment's going to be, because the only thing I want to do is call judgment to make it fair. Have some sort of understanding there and understand that they have been through their own thing and maybe they're doing it out of fear. They're not actually doing it because they hate me. They're not actually doing it out of jealousy, but they're just scared. Some of them are doing it out of pure jealousy. But even then, if you trace that all the way back, where's it coming from? It's an insecurity, which is fear. So I can't even be mad. There's so many people nowadays that I come up against that want to challenge me or test me or act disrespectful and rude towards me because they think I'm dumb or they think I'm less than because I'm kind. Like they're mistaking my kindness for weakness, and then they get their ass handed to them, and then they're like in shock or something. And I almost feel for them because some of them that are like my mirror, they're supposed to teach me stuff too. And as I'm learning, I'm like, I can't even be mad at this person. They remind me of when I was like 15, or this person reminds me of when I was like 9 years old, or this person reminds me of when I was like 26. Like, I can't even be mad anymore because it's like, oh my God, it's like looking at myself. And if I'm mad at them, then I'll be mad at me. And I don't want to be mad at me because I have the understanding there. I get it. But I'm not going to put up with it. Do no harm, but take no shit. Do no harm. Don't purposely go out of your way to hurt people, but take no shit. If you're plotting and planning and being disruptive and hurting and purposely sabotaging and want to see a person on their fucking knees, if you want to see them begging and pleading, you want to see them miserable and lose everything, what the fuck? What the fuck? Do you ever for a second just take a minute and be like, why am I fucking obsessed with destroying another human being's life? How do I not feel that that's not going to come back to me? Do you remember it's like a wave, like a ripple in a pool? What you send out eventually comes back to you. If we're supposedly in this big, huge bubble, in this big, huge globe, where do you think the ripples go to? You transmute that shit and you understand. You send positive ripples out. You want to send positive out. It's a lesson learned. Be like, I understand. I'm upset about this. The very first time I was upset about this was at this age. And I hold resentment. So when this person triggers me, I know why. Magic. It's a fucking miracle in a little bottle. It's magic. It's like a message in a bottle. You send it out there. It's magic. That sort of transmutation of the negative energy into positive through a lesson learned not only benefits you because it elevates you, sorry, not escalates. It elevates you, but it also transmutes the negative energy so that you're not sending more back out there. Half the problem we have right now is people sending the negative back out. When I send something back, I say, please return to sender for them to learn the lessons that need be here in the 3D on their own healing journey through understanding so they can transmute the negative into positivity. I don't want no harm. I'm not asking for them to get their fucking heads taken off. I'm not asking for them to go through some sort of terrible thing. But sometimes when they're really bad, I'm just like, you know what? Return to sender. My ancestors can handle it because I'm like, no. I'm not, no. And sometimes I'll get flashes too of certain things with specific people. People I haven't thought of in a long time that's done me wrong. And it's almost like I see a scenario play out in front of me with other people. And then all of a sudden a person will flash in my head. And I'm like, no, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be the one to, no, I'm not dishing that out. I know that sounds weird, but just the way it works, just the way it's set up, it's almost like for me to get to decide who gets what. And I'm not doing it. I am not going to decide who gets what when it comes to their negative karma. No, I want it to be just and fair. I want them to learn so they're not in pain, so they don't dish it out to me or anybody else anymore. I want them to understand that since the very beginning, even when I was even an infant or a child or very small, that all I've ever given out was love. I may have been people's mirrors and pissed people off, but I wasn't doing that out of like anger. I wasn't doing it to hurt them. That's just naturally what I fucking do. Yeah, I know I went really quiet there. It's just there's so many people in my life. When I get to go back, when I get flashes, when I get to see some of the stuff that people have done, and back then I was too blind to acknowledge that it was actually a person doing something to me bad. Now when I go back on it, not with hate, not holding on to any emotion or anything, it's just like, wow, holy shit. Holy shit. Like these people that I was raised around, I grew up with, friends, family, ex-lovers, they really treated me like the lowest of the low. A designated handicapped person with said handicap that has been diagnosed with a handicap, that has been given a fucking label, is treated better than I was treated. And there should be no difference in treatment to any human being. But I was treated very, very, like worse than cattle for slaughter. I was treated with such disrespect and such disgust and such worthlessness. I carried that. I don't know who placed that onto me, but I'm going to assume that from what I've researched into my own Akashic, I'm going to assume that that's carried down a long line of people being made to feel like they're not worthy. Anyway, so the amount of energy that I carried, that was just continued. The people around me treated me as such, and I didn't know better. I didn't know how to understand what was going on. Nobody explained it. I didn't know how to adjust my behavior. Nobody taught me. I had to learn certain things. At one point, I had to learn what facial gestures was. I had to learn how to speak to people properly. I taught myself how to read micro gestures and facial expression. Before, when I used to talk, I used to be like this talking to a person, then I would look over here as I'm talking to them, and then very rarely did I make eye contact, but I'd be like talking like this, right? And I wouldn't look at them, and so I wasn't getting any facial cues to be like, oh, they're not interested, they don't care about what I'm saying, or maybe they are happy or sad or whatever. I never looked at the expression. I wasn't really focused on the expression of the face, which makes it very hard to properly integrate yourself into society when you don't know how to read another person like that. The only thing I went based off of was my intuition and feelings, emotion and stuff like that. So like there's a lot of things I had to teach myself that nobody taught me. And yeah, I've always been strange. If you can resonate with any of this, sorry if you were put through hell and back too. Sorry people didn't recognize your heart. They didn't recognize the amount of love that you had to give. They didn't recognize your gifts or talents or abilities. They didn't recognize. I'm sorry if people didn't recognize you as a fucking human being. You're more than welcome to like or subscribe or whatever the fuck you want. I don't ask for it, and I'm not begging for it because I was begging for way too much in my life. And I'm good now. Miracles happen to those that believe in themselves. And I'm going to continue to do so, even if I don't have a support team. I still energetically have my ancestors, I believe. I have a whole fucking army behind me. And I've witnessed some things that I can't explain on my behalf, standing up for me. Like this one lady, I have a tree out front. She's younger than me, I would say. She's just walking her dog. She walks by the tree. She kind of looked it up and down with that like disgust look. And even I was shocked because I'm just setting up whatever my paints and stuff, and I caught a glimpse of it. And I was almost shocked. I was like, oh, that's fucking rude. You don't have to like my fucking tree, but don't look at it all fucking weird and shit. Then I go back to doing what it is, and she gets to the end of the sidewalk at the very end, and I hear this yelping, like, I look over. She's down trying to untangle her dog. It got caught up, and it was pulling at her or whatever. And then as she's untangling the poor little tiny whatever the fuck that was, she looks up at me quick and then looks back and does whatever she's doing and then leaves. And I was like, oh, it's fucking karma. Like, good for you. But like, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case, but that's just definitely how I took it. That happened simultaneously, one after the other. It was very brief, very quick. I wasn't calling no judgment. It was more like a shock, like, what the fuck, right? And then I just let it go. I let it go. I didn't get upset, and I went about doing what I was doing. So I've seen lots of instances where that happens. I've been protected from a lot of shit. I've been around a lot of different scenarios that play out that you wouldn't normally see in everyday life. Almost to kind of like moderate or mediate between people. situations I'm putting in. Like, I can't even explain it. Maybe you've been through this stuff too. Anyways, what else can I touch on here? Massage therapy. I don't do Reiki, but reflexology and stuff, massaging of the feet and the back and stuff like that. Naturally, I seem to have a real gift for that. I've done it for people. I'm not registered or nothing like that, but I've done it for people, and I just kind of zone out when I'm doing it, and I kind of seem to know what I'm doing, even though I've never went to school for it, which is kind of cool. A lot of energy in your hands, very important. I'm soaking my feet right now. Afterwards, I'll probably massage my feet. There's different pressure points in your foot that coincide with your organs and stuff. And if you ever get a knot in your foot, one that's painful, work it out. The more painful it is, the more you gotta go into it, work it out. You'll thank me later for that one, but yeah. I think that's it. Have a good evening, okay? Take care of yourself.